Good morning, DFW. You are listening to the Dallas Fort Worth Business Podcast. I'm so excited that you're here this morning. Hope that you are having a phenomenal week. I'm excited to continue just to bring show after show after show in the month of January. We're doing a show a day every weekday. So we got 20 amazing guests lined up. Excited to bring that to you. And, let me know what you think. If there's anything that you are like really, really loving about the show, if there's somebody that you want to see, if there's some topic that you want us to drill down a little bit further, drop me a line, podcast at boldmedia.us. I would love to pick up the conversation with you. Obviously, tell your friends, tell your family, like, share, follow, subscribe, all those nice obligatory terms that I'll use one time. I promise not to annoy you with that too much. So excited to bring on our guest for today. It is the amazing Bezan Morris. I know he hates when I say that, but phenomenal guy. You're going to enjoy. You're going to enjoy having him here with us. So Bezan, man, I just want to welcome you to the show, man.
Thanks so much, Aaron. Good morning. It's good to see you.
Absolutely. So Bezan is one of these financial advisor guys. So we got these like weird legal regulatory things that we got to go through. So Bezan is a friend of mine. I would hate to see him let off to jail. And so we got to do it right, man. So let me throw the disclosure stuff up real quick.
Sure.
So I'll let you guys read that. Basically, it's his contact info, phone number, email, all that jazz, right? So you can follow him. You can connect with him here on social media.
And we'll definitely talk a little more about that. LinkedIn is probably the best way to reach out. So
all right, good deal. And then here's the actual thing that matters most, and I'm not reading that, so go for it.
Yeah, that's my job.
Yeah, ready to go.
The material is being provided for information purposes only. There is no guarantee that these statements, opinions, or forecasts provided herein will prove to be correct. Past performance does not guarantee future results. Investing involves risk regardless of the strategy selected. Raymond James and its advisors do not provide tax or legal advice. You cannot invest directly in any index. The S&P 500, it is an unmanaged index of 500 widely held stocks that generally consider representative of the U.S. stock market. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, God. We made it. We made it through that. So, and let's just go right there, because I'm gonna say squirrel, and I'm just gonna run after it, right? So it's like S&P 500. It's been up. It's been a great year for the stock markets. And until things are changing, I'm trying to tread lightly here as it relates to political discussions. I'm like, okay, how much trouble do I want to get in this morning, right? So,
right.
But no, I'll just say S&P 500's done really well. I don't really follow too closely all the other indexes, but I've definitely noticed S&P's been up. We'll see how long that lasts. What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, at the end of the day, a corporation, a business, their job is to be profitable. So regardless, and you hear people in the industry talk about this quite a bit, regardless of who's in office, a company is going to operate in a way to be profitable. So the most common misnomer that you kind of hear out there in the industry is, a Republican, typically, right, business friendly, more fiscally lax or conservative, like they're the ones that are going to let businesses grow. But when you look back historically, some of our worst years in the market were when a Republican was in office. And guess what? On the flip side, the anti-business, regulatory pounding Democrats, they kill businesses. Some of the best years were when Democratic presidents were in office. So I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it doesn't matter. What matters is, what are the policies? What are the regulations? What are the laws that are being out? So I think you are going to see some things shift. You're going to see some changes in the market as far as who's profitable and where things are going. But wholesale companies are going to figure this out. Corporations, organizations are going to figure out, how do we continue to be profitable?
And if you'd like to send Bezan hate mail and not me, you saw his email. So back this up about 2 minutes and you can get his contact info.
Right.
Thanks for taking one for the team, man. I
That's right.
really appreciate that. No, like one of the cool things about the SP 500, and I'm going to show just how green I am to this, and that's why you're here. So, but S&P 500 is a dynamic listing of companies, so it's not always going to be the same 500 companies year in, year out. Their companies fall off and get added on a semi-regular basis, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And again, it's an index, right? So the idea there is that it's just something to measure against. The best example that I think of, because this happened to me, right? Sitting in my doctor's office, waiting for the doctor to come in, I looked up on the wall and they had one of those body mass index charts. Are
Okay.
you familiar with this, right?
Yeah.
So I look at that and I look at my height and my weight, and it says I'm obese. And I went, wait a second, like, and that's, you can appreciate this, right? As a Marine, to be sitting there looking across at that and going, wait, I'm a fat body? Wait a second. Like,
Yeah.
And I kind of mentioned that to my doctor, and she said, generally speaking, it's an average, right? Like, I'm not looking at you thinking that you have to go out on this big weight loss program, or that you're diabetic concerned. So like, that's the example that I give, right? It's just, hey, on average, these are what these companies are doing. And even on years when the S&P falls quite a bit, there are organizations, there's companies that go up. Their value continues to rise because they are in an industry that continues to provide a value. A great example this year was none other than Zoom, right?
Okay.
What did we see with companies like that? And, the ability, and tech companies that kind of stepped up when we started to shut down physical locations. Like, that's a great example of, hey, the market as a whole was not doing great, but these companies were being successful. They were providing a value, and that's the point. That's what companies are trying to do in general.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you said earlier, they have to adapt to whatever the rule book is at any given time. So, and given that they're a publicly traded company, they're laser focused on delivering shareholder value, shareholder returns. And so,
Absolutely.
like, well, crap, if the rules are changing and we got to adapt to X, Y, and Z, then let's do that. And so, business is always dynamic, but I would say even more so on a crazier level. If you decide to go the publicly traded option, it's a whole nother set of rules. It's a whole nother set of pressure, but it's a whole nother set of opportunity too.
Absolutely. Your guest yesterday, I'm sorry, his name eludes me, but the gentleman who was doing the software development,
Chad.
Yes,
Yeah.
Chad. He mentioned it, right? That word that we're all kind of sick of, pivot.
I know, man.
It's that Friends meme, right? Ross
Yeah.
and Chandler moving the couch. We're showing our age when you reference that. So
Fantastic.
But it's true, right? Like, you see organizations, I mean, even just me personally, here I am in my home office, which, I had to reorganize and get to a sense that I could work here. This was not a place that I was at regularly. It was the home office at home, but
Right.
it was really kind of a glorified storage closet. So like, I now had to actually make it a functional office. I've been here since March. It's only been a handful of times back to my physical office location in downtown Fort Worth. Otherwise, it's been working out of the home. And that type of adjustment that so many people have done has really opened some opportunities, just wholesale for our economy and for businesses and how they operate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're noticing, I've noticed a lot of companies across the Metroplex are adopting right now. It changes. Everything's subject to change, obviously, but a remote first setup, right? It's, for some companies, it doesn't make sense to try to bring everybody in and all of the other crap that you got to do to make that a tenable option. But then there's other companies, right? Like anybody who's related to manufacturing or retail, you kind of got to be there to make stuff happen. And so they're having to adapt to those things. But for industries and people that can get away with it, it's like, hey, go home, stay home, and maybe we'll do like a team huddle up at the office like once a month, or
Right.
maybe once a week. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But everybody has had to adjust to the work from home office setup. And if you got a 4-bedroom house, well, that 4th bedroom just magically transformed into a home office now.
Yep.
Unless you got a bigger home and you've got like all these other extra little nooks and crannies that you can set up shop. But no, it's like companies like Home Depot, I think, and Lowe's and some of these other home improvement places, man, I think they have been cleaning up. And I should have looked this up before we got on the air, but I feel like I read somewhere, and somebody can correct me on this, but I feel like I read somewhere that both of those companies have just been absolutely crushing it, because you're home now, man. You're staring at that like crappy looking wall that you've been wanting to fix for the longest time, and now you're actually going and like doing all these little pet projects.
And it's kind of funny. You're absolutely right. Like that's what people are doing, right? You sit around, especially back in that March, April timeframe when we really didn't have the information. We didn't know what was happening with the pandemic. We just knew we all couldn't be out.
Yeah.
So, you saw people sitting at home going, man, I've always wanted to paint that room, fix this floor, redo my kitchen, and why not do it now? I'm either not able to, or I'm limited on how I work. So why not put the time and the effort into doing this now? So you're absolutely right. Like, you've seen some really nice growth in some of that market. And, on the flip side of it too, we weren't moving, right? We weren't necessarily, now every market is a little bit different when it comes to real estate, but for so many markets, there was no opportunity to even go to a different home. So if you didn't like the house that you were in, it's not like you had the opportunity or the option even to change it. So, again, if you're going to be here, you might as well make it yours. Might as well enjoy it.
It's true. Well, and the DFW market, and I've got a realtor I think coming up here in a couple of weeks, but the real estate market though has been red hot. I mean, so it's like there's still growth here. It's not like things are dead. So I've been, and I think there's a lot of folks out there that are just watching to see like what's the future real estate here inside the Metroplex. Like, can I even move? And it's for sure it's a seller's market right now, and it'll be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how the home office element of buying and selling homes now plays into that whole journey. But we'll move away from real estate topics. That's not what we're here to talk about. But no, what have you seen just across the Metroplex and in the work that you do? So you're a wealth advisor. You're laser focused on helping people. But what have been some things that you've seen? Like you've got maybe a little bit of behind the scenes perspective on the impact that the pandemic has had on people. Like what can you share with me?
Mm-hmm. No, there's a couple really common themes that we've seen over the last year, and I think it's going to continue into 2021. The first one is people literally getting their house in order. So like we kind of talked about that right now, but also just their financial house, whatever that may look like. So,
hey, just real quick, just hold your mic out from your shirt. Yeah, just that way it's not rubbing up against your shirt.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's all good.
Yeah, so you're literally seeing folks trying to understand, hey, where am I? Where is my home in general? Am I set up to, if something were to happen to me, heaven forbid, am I set up to succeed? Is my family going to be taken care of? They're evaluating insurance needs. They're evaluating their estate plans, making sure, hey, if again something happened to me, tragically, I'm one of those people that's affected. Who's going to take care of my kids? Are my grandkids' college taken care of as I plan to? Is the home set up to go to the trust that we actually created? So those types of questions and that type of evaluation, I think, has really kind of opened a lot of people's eyes. And on the flip side of it, if you are one of those folks that never did those things, never took the time to set up your will, never took the time to evaluate, hey, if something were to happen to me, where do my children go? Who takes care of my kids? Who's going to raise them? This is a great opportunity to do it. Again, if you're at home, if you're stuck at home and you're not able to work, what a great time to be able to sit down and actually do that evaluation and kind of walk through what are the questions, right? That's the other piece. What are the questions even that I should ask? Probably one of the ones that comes up the most for me. We can sit and have a long discussion about it, but divorces being so high, the transfer of assets from generation to generation, depending on a second or third marriage, could, if you're not keeping up with all of your estate planning, like you could unintentionally skip your kids or unintentionally lose the control of where you want your assets to go. So I think you're just seeing a lot of folks take a lot more time to really understand that and to really focus in on, are we set up? Heaven forbid something should happen to us. It's kind of it's a pessimistic, in some senses, way to look at life, right? Like I think in general, the type of people that we are, like we're optimists. We always look at the bright side. We try and find the opportunity. However, you have to be prepared for that. I
And
think
then that bus hits me as I cross the street.
Right, exactly,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. The saying I like to use, I stole it from my father-in-law, was if you're driving down the street and you get hit by the Bud Light truck, what's gonna, and then you go from there. And usually people laugh. They go, "Oh man, yeah." Most men say, "Yep, that's the way I want to go." Like if I'm gonna go, that's gonna be it. But yeah, it's true. I think that's really the biggest thing, is that this pandemic and this last year as a whole has affected so many people to take a better look at where they are and making sure that they put the things in place to protect those things that they have, and the assets and the people that they hold dear.
Wow. Well, it's funny because it's like this opportunity for people to focus on just the business of their own family, or their own home, their own house. And so it's just funny because we've just got done talking just a few minutes ago about home improvements, like the actual physical home improvements or renovations and things that people are doing, but then also getting their own finances in order, getting their own estate planning in order, getting all those other things done that people have been putting a lot of this stuff off for a long time. And I guess, I don't know, maybe it's the fact that they don't have to commute 45 minutes to an hour one way each day to work. They could actually think about some of this stuff,
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly it. I think, it's, you get caught in your own thoughts, right? If you're some of those things you're not able to do, and for some people, they've taken that opportunity to kind of get some things in order and make sure that it is set up. And they may never need it. And knock on wood, the majority of people will never need it for decades. However, making sure that you've got it in place is key.
Yeah, for sure. Well, like let's kind of like zoom out ever so slightly, because we like teased it at the very beginning about what you do and what you're all about. But like, walk me through again, like, what do you do and like what breadth of services do you provide people?
Gotcha. So I'm a comprehensive financial planner. The industry as a whole, when you look back in our history, we were brokers. We had to buy or sell something in order to make a living. Um, I don't do that. I like to do comprehensive financial planning, which basically means I want to be able to look at everything. I want to take all aspects of a client's life, make sure that I understand it, create a plan, essentially a roadmap for them, and then help execute that plan. And for some people, that means holding on to something, right? They've had a high concentration in a particular company that they used to work for. Well, then maybe we may want to hold on to that if the company is going to continue to grow and provide those assets. For other people, they may be closer to retirement. So maybe we have to take some risk off the table and diversify their assets a little bit differently. But I want to take that complete view and then incorporate all those other things that we talked about. I'm not an estate attorney. I will not write a will. I will not write a trust. However, I want to make sure that we are incorporated in that process so that if we're setting up an investment portfolio, it's aligned with your trust. It's aligned with the people and the places that you want your money to go. Um, I am licensed to sell insurance, but I don't focus on insurance sales. However, having certain insurance elements as part of your overall plan is critical. You want to be able to protect those assets and make sure that you've got the right protection and the correct amount, right? If you've got $5 to your name, there's absolutely no need to have a $2 million life insurance policy. You're overpaying for that. You're overinsured. But let's go look at that. Let's make sure what makes sense for you. And it's truly customized too. Everybody's got their own story. You and I have talked a little bit about this, right? Just in our own journeys and our own professional lives, like what you do as a father and a husband is a very different focus than the guy who lives next door, right? Who's the W-2 employee that gets up and goes to the manufacturing job every single day. There's nothing wrong with that, but his goal and his focus and the things that he's aiming for are going to be very different than yours.
Sure.
Someone who's got more of that entrepreneurial spirit, who says, "Hey, I'm willing to, jump out and take risks or run my own company." And what does that mean? So, being able to actually customize someone's plan and their roadmap to get them where they need to go, I think that's really kind of if you were to sum up what it is that I do, that would be it.
No, that's great. And thanks for not going like too geeky and off the deep end. Like that was great. And when we get back from the break, what I like to talk about would be again, without like revealing anything like super sensitive, but like, are there any just trends that you're seeing? Like, are there any gaps that you would notice, or like, I mean, you could pick on me, you could pick on just people in general across the Metroplex, but like, are there common gaps in people's planning as it relates to their, their financial long range planning? Are there things that are just frequently forgotten about that you're just seeing time and time and time again kind of spring up and you're like, man, we need to address this? So we'll talk about that here in just a second. This show is made possible by amazing sponsorships, and so I'm incredibly grateful for the folks that sponsor the show. And so our show is brought to you today by First Response AC and Heating. They are a more of a Fort Worth focused business, phenomenal people. So I've shared the story probably a few too many times now at this point, but when you have someone show up to your front door and you need help with electrical or plumbing or AC in this case, a lot of times they're going to know more about, and I sure hope they know more about your problems than you do. But the problem is it can be difficult to understand what's going on. What I appreciate about these guys, what I appreciate about First Response in my time working with them, and they service my own heating and AC needs, is they'll take the time to actually explain to you what the problem is. Maybe you had a hunch or a theory as to what was broken, or maybe what you did to try to fix it or break it even more, maybe in my case. They will absolutely explain to you what's going on. They'll take care of exactly what the problem is. They're not going to try to upsell you. They'll maybe mention a couple things that you could do if you would like to do that, but is like literally zero pressure. It's not this commission sales pitch, and I love that. I hate being pitched and sold and felt pressured to do the entire laundry list of things that I need to do. And so, but I appreciate being made aware of it though. Right. So anyway, if you have any heating and AC needs and you're a little bit more closer to the Fort Worth side of the house, definitely give these guys a call. Phenomenal people, phenomenal company. So back to the action. So right before we broke, I just wanted to cover, like, are there any just major trends, macro level stuff that you're seeing time and time again that people are maybe they're missing or they're forgetting?
There's probably two in general when
Okay.
like specifically action items that I see a lot of. And the first one you actually just kind of talked about. So it's the do-it-yourselfer. It's the
Okay.
person who says like, hey, I handle it at, this online trading platform, whichever one that they've chosen, and I do my own. I don't need somebody like you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who are very successful at that. There's also a lot of folks who are missing. They've got some gaps in there. If you are completely 100% in one type of sector, technology, right? All I do is buy technology companies. You may be missing an opportunity if technology starts to struggle. Now, this year and the last couple of years, technology has not struggled. However, could it? Right? What is the research behind it? What's the point that you're going to step away from that and move into something else? Doing that type of analysis. Energy this year, had a rough year. There are some indicators for that sector to have a much stronger 2021. But if you were nothing but an energy investor over the last year, I mean, you kind of swung and missed. It was a rough year. So there's that piece where I think sometimes we, much like a lot of things, it's our own confirmation bias. Right. Yeah. I'm comfortable in X, therefore that is all that I will follow and trend. So that can be dangerous when you get to the person who doesn't have a plan. Where is the point where you're going to take all of your earnings and go, okay, I've made enough. It's time to move away and go to something else. I think the other piece that you see very specifically, which is probably the most common one, is when somebody sits down with me and go, well, I don't really have anything, so it's not worth talking. And then you start to dig a little bit more and you realize, yeah, you've got about 6 old 401ks that you haven't touched in your career, and they total up to 6, in some cases 7 figures.
Wow.
And that person goes, oh, I just I never even remembered that I had that. And sure enough, that's a great client because they understand the concept of putting money away and not touching it for the retirement purposes. So, hey, maybe that goal is already taken care of. Now we can do some other things.
Yeah.
That the addition on the house, the new car, the second home that you've always talked about doing. Maybe we've got some more flexibility that you'd be able to do that. So I think that's probably, like, if I was to say the two things that I see a ton of is folks not understanding that there is money out there that they've got and that they can actually start being a little more creative and just investing more deliberately, I think
Okay.
is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
It's not that making money is not a bad goal, but what are we making money for? What are we trying to do? Right? If you, Aaron, say, hey, and someday I would love to be able to write a 7-figure check to my church. That's a goal, right? Now we're doing it for something versus, well, I just want to see the number get bigger.
Right.
Right. And that former group, the ones who have that bigger goal, those are the folks that I love working with. Those are the ones that I want to work with, because we're shooting for something. We are goal based. We are going after an actual goal, an actual objective, versus, hey, I just want my number to get bigger.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny what you said too, because people will jump from company to company and they've started a 401k and they may or may not have done a rollover. And then so I can only imagine the kinds of conversations you have are like, holy crap, I haven't touched it. Like when you said, they don't mess with it. Like they set it up, they get it going, but they don't touch it. I mean, that's taking not touching it to a whole nother extreme,
Right.
because it's like forgotten about for 5, 6, 10 years or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's insane, man.
Or they didn't even think that they could move it. They were like, oh no, that's with that company. It has to stay there.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Honestly, some of the worst with that are veterans.
Okay.
The TSP, the thrift savings plan.
Yep.
That's essentially a 401k. When you leave the service, you can roll that. You can now move that into a traditional IRA and start investing it in different ways, right? Whether it be mutual funds, ETFs, whatever it is, you can set it up to have that choice and be able to do those things. So, like, it's out there, and it's fascinating to me when I sit down with a couple or with a family or even a business owner that says, like, oh, I don't have anything. Everybody's got something, and everybody is worth a conversation. So everybody is worth having a cup of coffee and at least talking about it and trying to figure out, okay, what makes sense for you?
Why did you get into wealth advising, and why do you enjoy what it is you do?
Uh, I got into this because I got to work with an advisor years ago. And just personally, and you and I, like, I mean, you kind of know my story. Like, we were in a rough spot financially. It was a rough place about 10, 12 years ago. And that advisor really kind of helped put me on a path and showed me, hey, this is where it can go. This is what you've got the potential to be able to do. And even though I was always kind of interested in the markets and investing, this was the first time that I actually sat down and put a plan together and really understood what it means to be an advisor and put that to work. So just my own personal experience helped to drive on that path. And what I love most about it is being able to work with a family and see the light turn on. Let them know that, hey, we've got a path. We've got a way to get where we really truly want to go. And that's the best part, right? I always tell people, like, I've opened accounts. They're very small that a lot of advisors wouldn't even look at. But the person who was opening it, the person who had that goal, they believed in the process. They believed in the plan. They were going to work together to get them where they wanted to go. I mean, that's service to a T, right? And that's what it was all about. It was, being able to love on clients and, help them get where they want to go.
Wow. Well, and for those that are listening, for watching, so if you are watching this, I'm going to make sure that I throw on the screen right here the link to, so Bezan was a guest on my other show, the Veterans Business Podcast. You don't have to be a veteran to watch the show. It's a phenomenal show that covers stories of veterans in business. So he joined me in season 1. So it is an audio format. You can listen to it anywhere you get your podcast, but you can watch it but just listen to it on YouTube as well. But I'll have a link for that there if you want to pick this up on Apple or Spotify or any other audio platform. Just search for my name or search for the Veterans Business Podcast. And then Bezan, you were season 1, episode like 4, I think it was. And so I can't believe I remember that, but so if you want more, Bezan tells a very compelling, very emotional, very raw story. And I don't know if we have time for you to repeat that here. So I'll point, no, it was a phenomenal story. So I'll point people to that. I'll purposely tease that out. So
I
people
appreciate it.
can go check that out.
I didn't
But
have a beard back then, so you didn't want to do video. I
no,
had to grow this in order to show up on screen.
You finally made the cut, man. I don't know about that trash that's hanging up on your wall, though. I keep seeing this thing in the yeah, like what is that, man?
So my mom and dad immigrated from India, and they moved to Pittsburgh. And my middle brother, I'm the youngest of 3. My middle brother and I were born in Pittsburgh, and we have taken the black and gold with us everywhere we went.
Man.
I mean, I grew up in New Jersey, so I was surrounded by Giants and Jets fans, but I was the kid in black and gold, being active duty in the Marine Corps, running around the world, taking a terrible towel everywhere you go. My oldest brother, in fact, was his first command. He was the CEO of the USS Taylor, which was a frigate down in Jacksonville, Florida, in Mayport. And my oldest brother retired, 30 years in the Navy. The other one is still in the Navy, 26 years this year. But my oldest brother, on the day of his change of command, as we were walking off the ship, the brow of the ship, so basically the ladder that comes off the ship to the pier, on the side of it, every port that they had gone to, he had a huge banner that said, "You're in Steelers country." The same banner that shows up on Heinz Field, that was on his ship everywhere. So we have this great picture standing out in front of that. And
I'm so sorry.
Oh yeah, man. My kids, born in Arizona, both of them, they wear black and gold. They even here living in Fort Worth, like, it's so much fun on Football Friday when they wear their Steelers stuff and take it into school. Like,
oh yeah. They're just begging for controversy. And so speaking of controversy, right? So my shout out to my pops. So he's a diehard Browns fan, and he shares with me the heartache of Browns fans being from the Cleveland area, right? So it was amazing. I mean, I've got to rub it in when I can, because I don't know how long it's going to last, right? So Browns managed to pull ahead of the Steelers last week and topped them 24-22, getting themselves into the playoffs. What's crazy, though, is they're literally going to play again the very next week. So they're playing on Sunday. This is the wild card game. Yep. And so it's like, here we go again. But this time they're playing in Pittsburgh. Not quite sure what's going to happen. But,
yeah. The Steelers will have all their starters in. There was that. It's
Cleveland came to life this year, man. Like I don't know where they've been, but they decided to show up this year and actually play some ball. I'm not a diehard Browns fan. You see my own paraphernalia. Oh, actually, you see it right below me on screen in my little in my burned in background that I so happen to accidentally locate the Raiders there. So I mean, I'm a John Gruden fan. Let me just be abundantly clear about that. So I love the dude's antics, and I love seeing his whole story, right, of stepping away from coaching. He's in the broadcast booth for like 8, 9, 10 years, and now he's coming. He came back. Now I think this is his 3rd season, and so I'm rooting for the guy. I want to see him do well, and then obviously we got our hometown Cowboys, and man, I don't even know what to say. I mean, like, what's your thoughts there on?
I do, but it's not appropriate for your podcast.
Well, give me like the PG-13 version of what you're thinking about that.
So I'll I'm a storyteller, man. So you're gonna get a story.
Do it. Yeah, no.
Growing up in the Northeast, right? Like, surrounded by Giants fans and everything. So, and I was, again, dating myself here. I was alive before DirecTV. So literally, like, you had the 3 games that were broadcast, and that was it. So watched a lot of Giant games. So became, this pseudo Giants fan as well, following them, and just grew up hating the rest of the NFC East. And everywhere I've gone, right, like those stinking Cowboys fans. Oh my goodness, like In fact, Arizona, before the Cardinals got there, 20 some odd years ago, they used to broadcast all of the Cowboys games. So Arizona has this huge Cowboys following out there. Again, America's team, right? So that portion of the country got Cowboys fans. Huge contingent of Cowboys fans out there. And when we were moving here, my daughter was 4 at the time. And we told her we were moving to Texas. So she goes, "Well, Daddy, the Cowboys are there." And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Well, that means there'll be Cowboys fans." Yeah, sweetheart. She kind of looked at me and I said, "Don't worry, you'll learn how to fight. You'll be fine."
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, we still laugh about that to this day. But yeah, it's
So again, I'll say if you'd like to send any hate mail to the show, you got the email at the very beginning of this program.
bring it.
Bring it on. Bring it on. Well, no, I know Amari Cooper underwent ankle surgery, so he's so we'll see. We'll see what they look like during the off season. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that I'm sure is happening behind the scenes. I follow them close enough because it's like, man, I'm not a diehard Cowboys fan, so maybe I'll get some hate mail, but but I do. I mean, it's kind of like it kind of rubs off on you though. Like you live here long enough. I follow them. I obviously would like to see them do well. Like who wouldn't want their hometown team to do at least somewhat well? But I mean, I've got other loyalties just like you do. But that's why I wanted to bring up. I'm like, man, there's like some trash on your wall that you haven't had a chance to take out. So I just want to pick on that for a second.
Oh man, yeah. And that organization as a whole, when you look at sports organizations and the value that they bring, it's phenomenal. And I don't know if you had the opportunity to go down to AT&T Stadium and see Jerry's. I mean, what a beautiful stadium and what they've done down there. So
you got live, you've got the new ballpark, right. I mean, everything's sandwiched right there with each other within a couple blocks. So it's like, I mean, you got sports and you got Six Flags right up the street. I mean, it's a pretty good spot to be.
Yeah, fun place to be in the Metroplex.
So let's like shift back over to I had a question for you on the wealth advisory side of stuff, but like if there's folks out there, because I think there's a lot of people that see this as and I mean, I'm just going to say it bluntly, and it's probably going to offend some people, but there's a lot of people I think that see this as like in many ways a get rich quick thing, and I know it's not. Like I know it's not, but there's a lot of people who see it as some opportunity to go do something else. And if I could just grow my book of business big enough, then I'm gonna be swimming in pools of cash. And so I've noticed. I only say that because I've noticed a lot of folks, without naming anybody, obviously, but I've seen people enter the space and I've seen them exit the space. And for whatever reason, right? And I'm not saying they're all in it because a bunch of greedy people. I think there's definitely some challenges to what you do. And I think there's going to be times when people are just like, man, enough is enough. I loved it. It was a fun run. I'm going to go do something else. And so again, I want to be careful there because I don't want to insult anybody, because I think there are people out there that give it their best shot, or they want to go see what it's all about, what it's like. Mm-hmm. And then a few years in, they're like, you know what, this really isn't what I thought it was. So I kind of set you up here for those that are considering starting a career. Like, so you've been in this now for a few years. Mm-hmm. What advice would you have for those that are maybe considering the idea of becoming a wealth advisor?
So first off, I don't want anyone to think that you have to be this Wall Street whiz kid to be able to go do this. You can learn the products, the knowledge, that's all teachable. And honestly, like, you don't have to be an advisor to be able to do that. Thank goodness to the internet, you can go research successful investment strategies. And there's enough books and how-to documents out there and websites and blogs that people can be very successful with this. So I don't want someone to say like, well, I'm not math oriented, or I'm not, numbers guy, or gal, and I can't, that'll never be me. I was a political science major in college, right? I wasn't a math major. Nice. I wasn't an economics major. Like, And if you were to sit down with a bunch of advisors, you will hear that it is such a varied community of folks that do this. I think the ones that are, if you're getting into it for the reason to truly service people and to be of service to your clients, you'll be successful. Some practical things that I would say, really take a good analysis of who you are, who you know, and who you're going to work with. I think that's probably when you talk to some advisors that struggle, or are completely out of it, or are completely out of the industry, have decided to go away. There wasn't really, again, I hate to use this word, but there wasn't really a plan. Who am I going to work with? Who are the people that I'm really, really, truly going to service? So
I
have
mean,
that
I'm just
kind
going to
of,
blast everybody on my phone and something like I'm going to get a bunch of people
yeah,
to sign up, right?
because that works.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah,
you know, have a little bit of definition around it, right?
sure.
And that can be said for so many things.
Absolutely. No,
Like
you're dead on. Yeah.
you and I have talked about, right? Like, the transitioning vet that says, I'll do anything, I'll go anywhere, I just want a job, I just want a paycheck. It's actually not helpful
Yep.
in trying to help that person find out where they want to go, because there's no direction. If do you want to live in North Dakota or do you want to live in North Carolina? There's a big difference there, and you've got to be able to define something like that. So I think if you're a new advisor, I would definitely say that, right? Take the opportunity to at least put that preliminary framework around, hey, these are the people that I want to work with. These are the folks that I want to be able to serve. And then the other piece of practical advice, which was actually the advice that my advisor gave me, is save up a big rainy day fund, because it's going to take a little while, right? This is not a get rich quick. I'm not the Wolf of Wall Street. I'm not calling somebody figuring out how to make $10,000-$15,000 in a day. That's not what I do. This is the long game. So we are taking our time and putting together a plan and executing a plan. And sometimes it's going to be a little painful. And sometimes we're going to, have to take a deep breath and just kind of hold on as the roller coaster goes up and down, and what that looks like.
Right.
But, you've personally got to be prepared for that. So, again, if you're a paycheck to paycheck person, before you go make this leap, you want to pile up. You want to make sure that you've got a little bit of safety net. You want to make sure that the boat is pulled over to the dock really close before you go do that, because it's going to be a little bit of a bumpy ride.
Yeah.
So I think
Wow.
be prepared for that.
Well, that's solid words of wisdom. And I don't care what industry or business you're in. I think a lot of what you just said applies across so many different endeavors. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're considering launching a business, or you are considering starting a different career, it doesn't have to be financial advising. It could be some other thing. Like, you better have a plan. But I think, especially with what you're doing too, Bezan, I think what I kind of hear you saying, and this isn't, I'm not trying to put you on the spot or interview you here, like in a very weird way, but like, you've got to get your own crap in order, right? So it's like, if you're going to service other people, like you kind of got to have some of your own stuff put together too, and like have your own house set
Yeah.
up, right? So like, you got to eat your own advice, and which I think is crucial.
My branch manager, when I was interviewing, to look at different firms, and my branch manager sat me down and said, hey, I'm and he asked flat out, like, what does this look like? What does the reserve look like? Help define it, put the numbers to it. And he flat out said, it's really hard to build your business as a financial advisor if you're delivering pizzas at night to keep the lights turned on, right? How would you feel if your financial advisor was also the guy who dropped off your Domino's one night, right? You wouldn't have a whole lot of faith in that person, right? And so, making sure that you are set up, and, he was just flat out and honest with me and said, like, you got to make sure that you're ready to go, as you said, because you've got to be able to live this. You've got to live this life to be able to really talk to folks and be impactful, right? Everybody's got great advice when, I think it was Robert Kiyosaki. I don't know if you've ever read any of his stuff, The Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And he talked about, real estate development. And he knew it was time to get out of real estate in that 2006, 2007 timeframe, when the person bagging his groceries was giving him real estate advice.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
like that to him was kind of the indicator. So yeah,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. Getting things in order and being able to do that. Plus, it will also just give you peace of mind if you're starting a career or anything, right? If you're starting a business, if you've got a little bit of that cushion and you're not worried about how the lights are going to get turned on next month, it gives you the opportunity to be able to build the business the way that you want. I think I don't know if I shared this one with you. I have a friend who started one of the last mile services with Amazon. And he talked about, hey, they talk about $10,000 and you can start this business. And that's right, you can do it. But he went into it with, I think, 30 or 40,000 and said it just allowed him to make decisions that he didn't have to wait on someone else for. It allowed him the flexibility to be able to go after something. And the example that he gave was cell phones. I had to go buy cell phones from whoever the provider was. And, Amazon has a contract with them and they tell you only buy 10 at a time. And he thought, well, that's kind of silly because I'm going to be hiring 12 to 15 drivers. So if I'm only buying 10 at a time, I'm always going to have a deficit. So he just went out and bought 40. He said, I'm going to put the money out and buy 40 now. That way I don't have to deal with it down the road. And then he always had that buffer. So when he hired another 10, he just went out and bought another 15 or whatever it was. So he always had that buffer. So now when his full complement of drivers came on, he never had a gap. So he was able to service routes faster. He was able to pick up those, like that decision he could not have made had he not had the cushion to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's solid, and everyone has their decisions to make as to how much cushion they need and what does that look like, how much, or as I like to say, how much runway are you going to give yourself, and I'll say back to the point that you made, and I agree with you in concept, right? So like the optics of having my financial advisor drop off pizza or serving me breakfast at Denny's or something, right, is probably not that good. I could not agree with you more. My entrepreneurial side of me is coming out and is like cheering and like screaming and yelling. I'm like, dude, you go get it, because you're hustling and you're believing and you're holding on to your dream. So like whatever it takes attitude. But man, I couldn't agree with you more though. It's like you've got to be able to set the example. We're talking leadership and advising. You need to set the example. And so like maybe you got to go do those things, but maybe you just don't broadcast it, or maybe you work on the other side of town or something, right? But real quick, because you brought it up and I want to see what you think of this, was Wolf of Wall Street. Has that had an impact on you? I'm being serious, man. Like that movie came out and I feel bad for so many people who work in finance, because it's like that whole industry now has got this crazy reputation. I mean, it was already there. Let's just be real.
Yeah.
But this just put it in HD. So like thoughts?
As I was starting my career, I mentioned that somehow. My wife said, I've never seen that movie. So I said, all right, let's watch it. Like you never see it. It's an entertaining film.
You shouldn't see it. No.
About a minute into it, I paused it. I looked at her and said, I just want to be clear. This is not what I do. Like, let's just be very clear.
It's like, what are you not telling me? What's going on at the office, honey?
What is going on at that office? But our industry as a whole went through that type of renaissance. So like you saw that, if you, again, that's just one example when you look at the Wolf of Wall Street, but like there have been examples of that, of folks taking this position of trust and abusing it. So the financial services industry as a whole has really gone through its own type of evolution. 20, 30, 40 years ago, the broker was the model. You were buying, you were selling, you were on the phone, you were convincing people to, buy whatever the stock of the day was, and then selling whatever the stock of not the day was, and being able to do that. This movement towards advising and truly being an advisor and looking at it holistically has really come out of all of that, And it allows folks like me to not have to be on the phone cranking out, or on the computer just looking at where's the right buy sell point. I love sitting down with a new client and telling them, look, if I'm sitting at my computer trying to determine the absolute right buy sell point for this particular stock that we're purchasing, I'm not leveraging all of the resources and the other team that I've got available. There's analysts that do this 24 hours a day. Let's leverage them to do it. Let's take a more holistic, a more strategic approach to actual wealth building. And that movement really happened, gosh, it was probably about 15, 20 years ago, where you started to see that be more of the focus of what we do. And then recently you've had things like regulation best interest and the Department of Labor's, Reg BI, all these things coming out that are, I don't want to say forcing us, but bringing more to light what the expectation should be for someone like us. Now, with all that being said, there are still really good brokers out there. There are still really good advisors that do all that other stuff, that will say, here's the portfolio that I create, that I manage. Here are the things that I believe in. Here's the research that I do. And here's why I buy and why I sell at these points. And they're very successful at it. I'm just not that guy. That's not my jam, right? Yeah. That, there's people, even in our office that are very good at that. I'm happy to refer folks to them and let them work on that. There's option traders and commodity traders. And there's such a wide breadth of things that are available to a person today. I would say if you're out there even just wondering, hey, is this the right person for me? Like, interview them. Go figure out who's the right person, who's the right mentality. Right now, everything that I've said, there's one of your listeners who's going, that's boring. It's slow. It's not like, I don't want to work. That's okay. I am okay with that. However, there is someone out there that will work with you and will help you get super successful, will help you get where you want to go with your own wealth building. You just got to find the right one.
Yeah. No, that's good, man. I was just genuinely curious because that movie definitely, I think, there's probably people that rolled up on their advisor the next week after the movie came out. It's like, so
yeah, let's talk about this.
Let's talk about this. And no, but I think it's important for folks to interview and get comfortable and get familiar with like who they're working with. It should not be this transactional thing. I mean, you're inviting somebody in to literally, it's like, in my opinion, like next to bedroom stuff, it's like we're talking finances, man. This is what powers your life, and this is what is moving things forward. This is where you can't hide, right? It's either gonna be pretty or it's not. And if it's not, you can make it look a lot better and you can clean it up. And so you want somebody that you can trust, and you want someone that you can sit down with. So it's kind of a big deal. Like, you should probably kind of like the person that you're working with. You should probably trust that person that you're working with. So I think that's great advice. And I think that applies to a lot of different forms of business, whether it's consulting, whether it's finances, whether it's whatever. There's 1,000 different things, 1,000 different examples that we could talk about where you need to interview and get comfortable and get familiar with who it is you're doing business with. So
absolutely. Yeah, it's a relationship, right? We're in a relationship business,
right?
And that harkens back. The first time I heard even something close to that was as a young lieutenant in the Marine Corps. I had a boss who said, "What business are you in?" So of course, young Marine, oh, we're in war fighting. We're in the killing business. We go after bad guys. And he looked at me and said, "No, you're in the people business." And the minute that you truly understand that and embrace it, things will open up for you. And it's one of those things you just never forget. And it's like, I'm in the people business. I'm in a relationship business. I am here to work with folks in the long run. It's not a transactional thing. It's a relationship.
Yep, man. Solid. I think that's a great place to wrap it up from there. But how can people, again, they already know how to get a hold of you, but let's cover that one more time, and we'll leave it there.
Yeah, I appreciate you throwing up the website and Twitter address and everything. But honestly, the best way is that top one there, the LinkedIn. Just reach out to me on LinkedIn if anyone just wants to have a conversation. Would love to. That's the best way to get a hold of me. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today, Aaron. It's been a ton of fun. It's been great talking to you. And yep, there's my email address. Please, send me an email. Would love to hear kind of your
And hate
thoughts.
mail.
And I'm sure, I'm going to get all the Cowboys hate mail now,
Yes.
right? Like,
yes. Yes. Send them the hate mail. Send them some love mail too, guys. Cause you for those that are listening, watching, you can tell Bezan's a solid guy as much as I'm going to bust his chops. And he may have made some poor decisions as it relates to his place of birth and all those things and sports affiliations, but still love the guy. I think I'll keep him around for a little bit, but no, Bezan, man, I just want to thank you. It's been a blast as always, my friend.
Yeah, it's been awesome, Aaron. You have a great day, man. Have a fantastic weekend.
All right, brother. Same to you.